Hey, good morning, guys. Welcome to All-Wheel Drive. Just wanted to do an update video for you guys. I was working on something for my wife. She's been really diligent about, all the toys that I've acquired over the years, and you guys have seen many of those in our videos. I thought it was time to give her something special for herself, her own toy. She previously had a 2011 MDX. I think I've referenced that vehicle a lot in some of the previous videos, just because it had features that I always thought were, things you expected when you got something a little bit along the lines of an upscale to premium type of car. And I would use it as a reference a lot of times because it had things in it that some other cars that I thought would have had did not. So I never reviewed that car. We've since moved that car on, and we've acquired this 2019 Volvo XC90 that I'm sitting in right now. This is the Momentum. They've got roughly 3 trim levels. You start with the Momentum, and the Momentum can be kitted out with packages according to what you desire and see fit for your needs. Different interior trims. They have this, which is called blonde. They have the charcoal, which is typically the black. The thing that really stood out to us about this particular interior, the blonde, is that when you get inside of it, it feels like a luxurious and premium car. The Volvo itself, the exterior, has been updated since as of 2016 is when they started this generation of the XC90. And it was a very huge milestone in Volvo's brand identity and sort of ascension into a luxury / premium market space. Because before, they had really nice cars, they were good build quality, they were well known for their safety, especially XC90. I think the term tank was applied to that vehicle because it was such a safe vehicle. It was built to withstand any sort of impact or collision that you might encounter, and you be able to walk away. So that was kind of their claim to fame early on. And so it's been an uphill, battle for Volvo because they kind of hit some lows back when Ford owned them. I like Ford cars, but it seems like every brand that Ford has owned has had struggles. So Volvo is now, sort of making its strides to be more upscale, premium, based on their origin, Scandinavian. And then just the build quality itself just elicits that same idea. So when you get inside this car, everything that you see, everything you feel and smell and touch reinforces that. And this car, when we first drove it, we drove a white one with the same interior, and when we got in it, the first thing we thought was, wow, this is really, really premium. This is what you expect. This is what you come to believe premium to be when you experience it. And though it's not, Range Rover, Land Rover level, especially monetarily, it is very, very, very close to that sort of feeling. And that's why we went with this interior. There were concerns about, oh, this color is going to wear really poorly. I mean, what interior doesn't wear poorly? It won't hide as much. I think when you get marks on it, it's going to be obvious. But I'm told that with the quality of materials that are being used in most cars, particularly this one, it's easy to take care of. It's not something you have to worry about, looking, ratty and tattered down the road. This particular model comes with it's the T5. You can get the T5 or the T6 and the Momentum. The 6 is turbocharged and supercharged, which, I was all about that. But after driving this in the T5, my wife didn't feel like she needs supercharged. And it's her car, so I'm not going to push the envelope for getting more power. More power is always great. I'm always on board, but after driving it myself, again, I felt like, what? It is very adequate. It's smooth. And for a 4-cylinder turbo, it's not what you expect. And the market is changing such that 4-cylinder turbos are kind of the norm. And they pretty much cover the bases from if you're going to have a base model and you're going to build up to a mid-level, the 4-cylinder turbo covers both of them. You don't even need to go 4, 6, and then whatever else your most premium upsell model engine will be. This engine covers the gambit, and it does here because you have the Momentum, which is your first model trim, and you can get that with all sorts of packages. to suit your needs. This one happens to have pretty much everything. All-wheel drive, I think, is now standard on 19s. You've got this really intuitive screen setup. It's basically a giant tablet. And this is all, you know, digital TFT type stuff. So, I mean, it pretty much has everything you would need from a luxury standpoint, tech standpoint. Everything is integrated here. There are some concerns about that originally. I mean, I'm old school, and it's like, what if this breaks and I can't? I'm done with that. I think at this day and age, you know, it's 2019. If we haven't figured out how to make things work in lieu of something going down, then we should stop building anything. So I think I'm just going to dismiss that concern. I mean, there have been too many models of vehicles out that have this technology, particularly Tesla. And, you know, the world hasn't ended because, you know, there was a glitch. So we're going to take the plunge as well. We have already. But the Momentum pretty much has everything you need. We got the pano roof. It's all electric. The screen is electric. And then you've got the full roof back. This one we really like because it has this feature here. So if you're a parent and your child is still in a booster, this thing is great because it is essentially a booster seat. If I can get it to move with one hand. So you do this, and this part flips up and it becomes a booster seat. My son was absolutely over the moon about this feature because as much as he likes riding a little higher, he does not like riding in a booster seat because he feels like he's a little kid. And, you know, the laws, you know, require that a kid under a certain weight, under a certain age, has to stay in a booster. Well, this right here negates having to put one of those, you know, usually spilled on and beat up and gnarly looking booster seats. And now he feels more like a big kid. So this was huge. The color of this car is called denim blue. That was a color that he explicitly expressed that he would like us to get. He's been putting the seat in my ear for a couple of weeks. I think his mom had a lot to do with that, but he did like the car, so here we are. But that feature was really cool. They don't all have that. You have to add that, I think, on a lot of the models. Along with that, the all-wheel drive, you've got the driver modes, you've got the heated steering wheel, which, you know, I thought was really cool. You also have the distance setting within the cruise control, adaptive cruise, and then there's driver assist. And apparently they work very similarly. I think the cruise control is a little bit more adaptive in that it monitors distance a little better than the assist. I'll figure that out down the road, but you know, we'll play with that stuff too. It'll be a while before I get the complete picture of everything that's going on with this vehicle. But for the most part, you know, everything that you could probably imagine that you need in here is in here. CarPlay and all that stuff is becoming a very standard sort of thing with any OEM, and any car that you look at that doesn't have that, you should probably pass, because a lot of times it negates the need for navigation. If you can get a vehicle for a price that works for you, and you get all the most, I guess, critical features about the car included, and nav is like one more that you don't need to pay for because you have Apple CarPlay, by all means, forego the navigation, use Apple CarPlay. That's a pretty good option, I think, and I'm glad that that's become a norm within the market. Most vehicles will come equipped with the screen and the basic setup, the basic groundwork for you to utilize a navigation sort of feature, be it Apple CarPlay or whatever. So luckily that's already, that infrastructure is in place. So even if you don't have whatever that extra module or feature or software it is that puts navigation in, if you have a vehicle in mind that has the option of Apple CarPlay with the technology to show it in the display properly, by all means go that route. The engine start stop is a very unique feature. It's actually in the center. Now this isn't foreign. I mean, if any of you are familiar with a Volvo or Saab, even Saab had a key that you put in here as well, right here in this location. It's interesting. I mean, it's different for sure, and it'll take some getting used to, but the fact that you don't need to put the key in the actual ignition, that's kind of cool. This thing has a really good feature where you can do your remote access and all the information updates via your phone through the app. So it has a Volvo app where you're allowed to actually access your car from all different kinds of, information that you may want. Basically, you can look at things like fuel level. You can look at tire pressures. You can start the car. I mean, you can access everything about this car via your phone, and that's not new to a lot of you who have some of the more premium cars. If you have the Teslas and things like that, you're able to do that. But it was really cool that they offer this on the entry model, which is the Momentum. The next model up from the Momentum would be the Inscription. The Inscription adds a feature to the seat where you can actually raise the cushion that sits here in the front to relieve pressure under your thigh. So it adds that to it. It also adds a different grille, and it adds different wheels. There are probably some other things that I'm not thinking of or missing because we didn't really go down that road. But it is a little bit of a different appearance package. And then third would be the R Design. Now the R Design is a very masculine offering for this particular model line, and it just basically puts 22-inch wheels. They have low profile tires. The grille is matte black, but it's a different style. This has the vertical slits. The R Design has this sort of they're almost like a row of segmented or perforated sort of little pieces in the grille, so it doesn't look quite the same as this, but it just kind of makes the car look a little bit more focused. It's a more sporting sort of focus for the particular for that particular option. Engines are all the same. T6 puts out 316 horsepower versus roughly 258 in just the T5. When you talk about those numbers, they seem significantly different. I mean, you're talking well over 50 horsepower difference between those two engines, and I think it just comes down to what it is that you need the vehicle to do for you. I like having the extra power just because I like power. The T5 is so adequate. It's so smooth. It's got 8-speed transmission, and the way that it's all mated together, it does such a great job that unless you absolutely need extra power for maybe if you're going to use this thing to haul something, maybe tow something, I'd probably go with that. But I have a truck, so this is her baby, so by no means will we be towing anything with this. But just for perspective's sake, having that bigger engine, it's useful in terms of your initial low end. It's just a little more kick. A supercharger, always on. Turbochargers, take a second. The new technology with the turbochargers is so intuitive and so well designed that you really won't notice lag. The lag is compared to the late 90s and some of the early 2000s turbos, the lag is probably cut in half, if not more than that. You just don't feel it. I'm honestly, I'm going to stand by that because I've driven enough of these turbocharged 4-cylinder cars that I've come to understand that they've figured it out pretty well. I think BMW really sort of helped lead the way in that. Of course, Audi as well, because they've been using them for so long, but it's just an evolutionary tale of, doing everything better. So, I would say drive both of them if you're considering this car, and just see what your need is. If it's for, a particular person in your household, let that person figure out what they need. This car has roughly, I'm going to say pretty close to what our MDX had. Our MDX was a 200, actually our MDX was a 300 horsepower car, but it didn't have that much more torque than this. So the offset actually levels it out. And so this feels about as good as far as performance goes as our MDX. A lot quieter though, a lot smoother. I think the word I used when I described this vehicle to the dealer or the sales manager when we first drove it was that it was very velvety. It just feels like the right place to be. So pretty excited about it. My wife is over the moon about it. We looked at a number of cars. We looked at the new MDX. We've had 3 Acuras in our household. She's had the TL 2000, I think it was a 5 TL. It's a great car. She had the MDX in its first sort of iteration, in the new style back in 2007. I think they changed it up. and that carried over through 2013. So we had the 11. We quite loved it. It did everything well. It was really great in snow. Just a well-rounded vehicle. I had everything. One of the things that I really was bummed about when I was looking for new vehicles for her was that with all the technology and all the features that now are available in these vehicles, heated steering wheel became a very big plus and something we just felt like, you know what, why not? Well, they don't have the electronic steering adjustment. The MDX had that. Lexus has that. A lot of other OEMs have that. So to get in this car and find that they don't, it was, for a moment, I felt like, let me back up out of this, because if you're going to have a luxury vehicle, why would you have that? When you're using separate keys to get into a vehicle, I have a key, my wife has a key. We both have settings for where we want to be positioned when we drive. So to get in the vehicle and, you know, have to do that every time, that's kind of annoying. I mean, you want everything to cater to you when you get in it. But the steering wheel is such that if you move the seat, hit the set button for where the seat is relative to where the wheel is, each driver can utilize the wheel in the same place. And if you need to make a change, it's not monumental. I'm not happy about that, but it wasn't enough to sway me from this direction. So the MDX was in consideration. We also looked at a Audi Q7. I just didn't like the styling as much as I have in the past. I think my wife explained it as, or described it as being kind of blah. And we like Audis. I've had a couple Audis, and you know, I like them, but it wasn't riveting. We considered the Mazda CX-9. Now, that's an interesting consideration because Mazda is now positioning themselves a little differently than they have in the past. You don't hear zoom zoom as much. Their cars, if you look at their vehicles, the design, aesthetics, the interior especially, is just, it's miles and miles and miles beyond what Mazda has ever been. I dare say Mazda is approaching premium. And if you get in the vehicle, you immediately get a sense of that. And I drove that CX-9. I drove the Signature Grand Touring, and I was very, very thoroughly impressed. Again, it did not have the remote or the electronic steering wheel adjustment. And that was the first thing I was like, it's going to kind of send me back the other direction of some of the other stuff. But the interior fit and finish of that car was fantastic. That car is very nimble and agile. It doesn't have nearly the horsepower. It is a 4-cylinder turbo, roughly 227 horsepower, but it has 310 pound-foot torque. This car has less than 300 pound-foot. So that, you have to think of those numbers. I think in the M3 video I did, I talked about torque relative to horsepower and where the significance lies. In that vehicle, the torque is going to be your initial boom, your snap, your takeoff, your acceleration. 310 pound-feet on 227 horsepower is equivalent to 295 horsepower, 258 pound-feet in a V6. So just painting a picture there, before you start thinking 4 cylinders in an SUV is a ridiculous notion, I'm just going to tell you that would be what I consider wrong. It's impressive. It is very impressive. And, you know, after coming out of a V6, to get in one of these and to get in that Mazda, I tell you, it was eye-opening. I mean, I haven't been in the dark ages about cars, but I haven't exactly been following how 4 cylinders are being levied across every kind of vehicle segment. I know they did the 4-cylinder in the Ford Mustang. I even talked about it in the Mustang review I did, and how that would eclipse the 6-cylinder. Well, it did. And so the same thing is happening with bigger vehicles, because you can do so much with a 4-cylinder. That's never been an unknown you know, sort of consideration. So taking a recipe that works well and tweaking it, you're talking about things like timing and tuning, you know, the degree of angle on the engine that maximizes its output. There's so many variables that go into it, the turbo placement, the ECU. So you can get so much out of a turbocharged 4-cylinder that it can be levied across just about anything in your lineup. And Audi was really sort of pioneering that, because they use their 2-liter turbo in so many vehicles, and they still do. And I think everybody's catching on to the fact that, you know, you can make more with less, and you can make that more accurately suit the vehicle that it's being used in. And I think this is a great example, as well as that Mazda. So we consider that Mazda. There were a lot of things I liked about it, things I didn't like about it. I wasn't crazy about the styling over the Volvo. I think our hierarchy was Volvo first, and Mazda was actually after the MDX until I drove it. The car that followed Mazda, we considered 4. The last car, which was just interesting considering the cars that we're talking about, you know, with a sort of premium feature or presence about them. The Ford Explorer made it into our conversation of consideration. And the reason why is that the Ford Explorer has so many features, so much tech, so many accommodating elements. The Explorer had a electronic rear third row seat control. You can lift the seat up and down electronically in the Ford. It had everything else. It had the Apple CarPlay. It had the Bluetooth. It had the huge screen for interactivity. It was all just as advanced as this and the Mazda and the MDX. It wasn't lacking in any way. The thing that I didn't like about it, and I had to remind myself, was the Ford is not a premium car, and it's not trying to pretend to be. So what you're getting is what you're getting. What you see is what you get. And the Ford, you know, it ticked every box, and my wife actually liked it. I was surprised because I wasn't crazy about the styling, but I kind of liked it because it did look a lot like a Land Rover. And that's kind of cool that they, you know, copy that, because that really sets a, you know, it sets a precedent. And when people look at the vehicle, they go, it looks like it could exist in a premium space, but it's not. And so the thing that really sort of cut that out of the picture for us was that when you look at the price point, it was based on what it featured and not based on its position in the market as premium or non. And if I'm going to pay what we're paying for this vehicle for a Ford Explorer, I'm going to go with the vehicle that gives me that feeling, that velvety feeling of luxury and appointment when you get in it. I mean, if you're going to spend this kind of money on a vehicle, you might as well get the one that makes you feel the best. And this one, hands down, did that for my wife. Does it for me as well. So those were the ones in consideration, and we just kind of reordered them. We drove every one of them. And this one stood out. It just stood out. I mean, from the look standpoint, from the offering standpoint, from the advancement standpoint, you know, it's probably the most evolved out of all those vehicles that we looked at. The MDX, to me, felt like they simply took our MDX, or the ones that came after it. If you look at the lineage of the MDX from 2007 on, it really didn't change that much. If you look at the basic lines and design of it, the B pillar and the C pillar are identical pretty much all the way through that period up through now. I mean, I looked at the new one, and the only thing that I noticed significantly different, other than some of the layout, infotainment setup, was that the car was a bit wider. The front grille is dramatically changed. It looks tremendously better than it did. But everything else just looked like it was our car with a major facelift. And I kind of felt like our car was starting to look dated. I like our car. I liked our MDX. But it was starting to have issues. It was old. It had 107,000 miles on it. It needed some love. And it's like, if I'm going to put the love money into that, why not just focus on something that we'll have for the next, who knows? My wife will drive this car for 10 years if it's just as nice down the road, which I think it will hold up pretty well. So the MDX in that respect just didn't feel like it was that much of an advance forward for Acura, even though it was a huge improvement. I didn't really like the layout of the IP. It was very simple. It looked exactly like it did in our car with some new knobs. I said knob. And, you know, it was, and then the multiple screen thing, I still don't get that. And the touchscreen feature, even if it works on the main screen, it was so far away that if you weren't Stretcho, you couldn't reach the dang thing. So anyway, that was the downside for that vehicle. And again, I think every time we came back to the Volvo and we drove one, I think I've driven three different models. My wife has driven 2, and we've looked at them. We've gone back to Volvo a couple of times and just looked and looked. So I think it was pretty much unanimous where we were going to go. And I think we ended up getting a really good deal. And like I said, for the price point, all the cars that I mentioned were very closely position price point wise. The Mazda was a little less, but not to say that it wasn't up to spec. Again, I think the Mazda impressed us so much that if we weren't going to go with the Volvo, we probably would have really considered the Mazda. I really like the Mazda. But this one was, you know, hands down the favorite, and it really sort of took us to that next level that we wanted with whatever we were buying and sort of going for a more premium experience. The Acura brand is not really a premium car company. It doesn't focus so much on trying to compete in that premium space with, say, like a Lexus or a Mercedes or even a Volvo. If you look at their campaigns lately, it's all been very heavily focused on the sporting nature. And they come from a sporting background. I mean, Acura, when they first started, their cars had a very, very sporting and aggressive edge to them. If you go back to the Integra and all the iterations of the Integra and then the RSX transition, and then all those different cars, the NSX, I mean, they really focused on making sure their cars had a performance arm to them. And they're really hearkening back to that right now. So when you look at Acura, if you're thinking about premium, it's less of a premium position and more of a more sporting, luxurious technology positioning. It has luxury, but it's not opulent luxury. This feels more like opulent luxury. The Mazda actually felt more like opulent luxury on the interior. Styling wise, I definitely love this styling more than the Mazda. The Mazda looks great, but this car just has a very definitive sort of presence about it, and I really like that. Take a look real quick as I'm sitting here. We'll get a look at this bit, the screen there. You can see that really well. It's pretty cool. It's all digital, and you can configure the thing to do whatever it is you want it to do. I can't start it because I'm in the passenger seat. My foot needs to be on the brake. But you know, you can configure it. The nav will exist over here as well as over here, so you can pretty much load everything up here and then have it show over there. It gives you a ton of information there. If you're you know, trying to figure out where you're going, the navigation is really intuitive in that you can show it in the middle of the screen instead of here in the center. A lot going on here. You got climate control here. You've got everything from car status, phone, radio, and then here's your GPS within that. You can open that up. And then if you want things like the heated seats, that's not too close. You got heated seats in here. And it's cooled as well. So you have all that going on. It has a heated steering wheel, which I mentioned. So there's a ton of stuff going on in this car. It's really cool. I quite like it. And then it's basically a tablet, if I'm honest. It's a tablet. You just scroll through everything. All your, you know, all your features, your lane keeping, blind spot, excuse me, crosswalk, alert, all that stuff. It's got all sorts of things going on with it. And that's kind of just, you know, that's par for the course for cars of this day and age. So, you know, this one's no exception in that area. So there's the Navi on now. You can see it on the screen in the middle. And, you know, it's really a cool place to drive. I mean, I quite like that. So anyway, that's the preview. That's a long preview, right? I'll get more into detail about it. Just wanted to give you guys an update. This took place last night. It's pretty early today that I'm recording this, but I typically pride myself on getting in and out of the dealership in a very quick time frame. This one took a little longer because we were doing multiple, we traded 2 cars in, and so this one took a little longer, mostly because the dealer had to go through do the hokey pokey and turn themselves around. But it ended pretty much not late into the night, but I would have loved to have been out of there before the sun went down. But nonetheless, the deal is done. We got to take a car back over to them, and then we'll be wrapped up. But yeah, more to come on this car. This is going to be an interesting one. I'll probably do it in phases. just kind of take you through everything that I learned about it. Because I think there are a lot of people out there looking at SUVs, and right now the price point for most things are level set. I mean, the Mazda, the Acura, the Ford, if you're looking at a Honda or a Nissan, they're all pretty much close. I mean, the distance between the premium brands and the mainstream brands cost-wise is not as big a gap as it used to be. I think I've mentioned this before. You know, you're talking within thousands of dollars, like, you know, and I say thousands, like less than $5 in most cases. Maybe sometimes it's not the most fully decked out premium option that you're looking at, but the fact that you can look at an Acura and an Audi and a Mazda all across the line and go, you know what, they all do the same thing pretty well. And it then becomes about preference. If you have a brand affiliation, if there's a loyalty consideration, you know, that's where it comes into play. But I think if you're going to, you know, take it from a very objective standpoint and say, I'm looking for X, Y, and Z, which one of you accommodates that the most? You know, it really behooves you to look at everything out there. So, all right, guys, thanks. Till next time, Old Drive. Peace.